Great marketers want to do more of what works and either fix or avoid what doesn't. They want to be effective. They want to be data driven. The issue is that a lot of the things we use to measure effectiveness are completely broken. And unless we understand why, we're not going to be in a position to fix it. As a result, we end up making bad decisions, which nobody wants. So let's talk today about measurement, what some of the challenges are, and what you can do to address those. The first thing would be the idea of tracking pixels. I'm a digital marketer. Chances are you are too. We look at tracking pixels constantly. They can be really informative, but we have to recognize that they are nowhere near the single source of truth that they're made out to be. They suffer from some pretty big limitations and some pretty fundamental flaws. The limitations they suffer from are things like VPNs, incognito mode, antivirus software that strips out tracking pixels, people using multiple devices and different browser settings, maybe some with ad blockers. 27% of Australians use ad blockers, and they often strip out tracking pixels. So we can't pretend like that pixels are getting the full picture. And that's just with those limitations. Now let's talk about why they're actually flawed. A tracking pixel is never going to pick up, for example, a word of mouth recommendation. It's never going to pick up a conversation in a Slack group or a LinkedIn message. It's just not going to see that. If you and I are having a conversation about a particular product and service and you tell me to check it out, I'm going to probably check it out. And what that tracking pixel then reports as the marketing channel that drove it is never going to be you. It's going to be something else that's just taking credit. We can't act like this doesn't happen. And yet, as marketers, we're sort of forced to. We're sort of forced to be held to what the tracking pixel says, even though we suspect, and I think others, when they critically think about that this isn't the full picture. So what do we do to fix it? Well, if we start to think about measurement as a bit of a puzzle with multiple pieces, then let's make tracking pixels or software-based attribution one of those pieces. We want to recognize what it's good for and what it isn't. We want to add, though, different pieces to that puzzle. For example, one of the biggest and best sources of data is people, your prospects and your customers. This was put on my radar by Chris Walker. So thank you, Chris. It's this idea of asking customers at their point of conversion. Maybe that's the high intent conversion action on your website. Simple question. Hey, how did you hear about us? And give them room to tell their story. Don't make them choose from a drop down. Don't bias them in any way. Just text box. Tell me how you heard about this. Once that person is talking to your sales team or has become a customer or perhaps a donor of your organization, you can then continue the conversation and with questions like, "Hey, I'm intrigued. Please tell me more about your research journey. What made you land on us? Who did you follow, etc." This is going to provide so much useful information that next to the tracking pixels, so pixels and people, provides a much fuller picture. The third piece of this measurement puzzle, I'd like to say, is your judgment. There are going to be cases where you're just never going to know if one specific piece of marketing helped or hurt. And uh, I think that's okay because we can always ask ourselves the value question. Is this piece of the marketing collateral, this blog post, this video, is it of value to our audience? Yes or no? Is it fit for purpose within our marketing mix? That is just simple common sense. Why not? If you're struggling with determining a piece of effectiveness, I'd really encourage you to please ask that. The second point is just being okay with a margin of error. Every marketer out there wants to have perfect data, but it's just not possible. We have to admit that we're never going to have the full picture. What we can do, though, is try to get the appropriate pieces of the puzzle as best we possibly can, and then use our intellect to make decisions accordingly. Maybe the third kind of component, which is an extension of that, is this idea of time. If you have a really high consideration action, we have to be realistic that somebody who clicks through and discovers you in January may not actually end up converting until December. So if we're launching ads in January, we have to be very careful with how we evaluate them. We have to take that longer term lens. And that's why mixing pixels with people, with judgment, is going to give you a much more accurate picture and help you make better marketing strategy decisions. So I hope this helps you, as it certainly helped me, and all the very best with your marketing measurement.